Duncan Powell just entered the transfer portal, and I have 3 reasons that he's leaving North Carolina A&T. Oh yeah, it's Locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked on HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked on HBCU podcast, your number 1 daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, Sam Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor. Thank you for going on this journey with me, making Locked on HBCU your first listen of the day. Every day. Remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey's over. You see it charging up. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. You can see it at the bottom of the screen. But if you're on the audio side of things, don't forget the S on the end of South Exclusives. We have an absolutely phenomenal show. I'm really happy about what's coming up. We're going to wrap up with what I think is a fascinating and very intriguing story of Kevin Saxton's rise from D3 coach to NFL staff member in only 5 seasons. Norfolk State women's basketball might have lost to South Carolina, but they left an impression on the legend Dawn Staley and then also the Lady Gamecocks. Before we get into any of that, I have the 1, 2, 3. I heard this is how they count to 3 in France. So, 1, 2, 3 reasons that Duncan Powell is leaving North Carolina A&T. But first, let's set a scene. Now, Duncan Powell leaving after just a season of playing feels like a bad ending to a really good story. And technically, the story isn't over. I really should say this feels like the ending of a chapter. The North Carolina A&T chapter is done. He's gone, right? And I'm listing off the 3 reasons. And the one I'm very certain about, I know that he's gone. This feels like the ending of a good story, though. And the story starts his senior year of high school. He was the highest rated recruit in NCAA or in North Carolina A&T, history. And that's good enough, right? When we sit here and talk about recruiting and how HBCUs should look like a desirable option, these are the type of actions that people want to see. They want to see high-rated recruits in basketball, football, baseball, softball, soccer, volleyball. They want to see in all these different sports. Duncan Powell just happens to play men's basketball, but we want to see recruits who are highly rated coming out of high school choose to go to HBCUs. Duncan Powell did that. And then he said, this is the quote, "I'm just ready to get there and dominate. That's as simple as it gets." Man, how things change. But at the time, it was like, there we go. Then he comes in, he plays, he gets a CIAA Rookie of the Year, all-rookie team. Things are going well. And then he hits the transfer portal. And I seen somebody say on Twitter, and I thought this was stupid, so funny, like stupid in a funny way. He's like, I should have known that he was going to transfer when he started posting his highlights. And I'm like, you know what? In hindsight, we really should have. I should have seen the random self-promotion and be like, you know what? This dude trying to set himself up for something more. Maybe in it, I think it actually lends itself to the first reason because I have 3 reasons. 1, money. And that's the one I am certain of. I know it feels weird to say so certainly that I know a kid is going to go for more money, but that's what it is because he tweeted out, Duncan Powell himself tweeted out, "I play basketball way too good to have to decide between putting gas in my car and getting a haircut. ... Let that sink in." All right. First off, I can guarantee you he's choosing the haircut. He has a shag. I feel like people with shags, you can't let your haircut go. Like, I ain't never been no shag guy. I ain't never did that. I guess I was far enough from Dallas. The boy from DeSoto. But I'm assuming he gets the haircut and he just catches a ride with his teammate. But on a very serious note, he's right. He shouldn't have to do that, whether he's good at basketball or not. But the fact that he said he plays basketball way too good to have to make that choice, it tells me straight up, this is a business decision. He's going for them NIL deals. He's trying to go somewhere where you have a bigger school that likely is going to give you more opportunities. That's what he's looking for. That's what I hear. When I let it sink in and I get past my juvenile way of looking at the shag versus driving and riding around, that's what I hear. I play basketball way too good to be making that decision. You think he's making that decision because he's like, oh, I don't know if I should go to the gym or... No, he's making the decision because he feels like he's not making the proper amount of money. And, you can legally pay players now because of the NIL deals. So I believe that wherever he goes, you will see an NIL deal attached to him. That's the one thing that I know for certain that he's looking for. Everything else is kind of speculation. Starting with this one, coaching. He was recruited by a guy who got fired in the summer. Mind you, Duncan Powell only played one season. He never played with the coach that recruited him. That's not to say that anything is wrong with the interim head coach, but a lot of guys have connections to the person who recruited them. And the guy who recruited Powell is no longer here. I don't think that it would be wild to say he lost a bit of his connection to North Carolina A&T with that coach being fired. But then also, maybe the coach being there could have pulled him back and he'd been able to talk to him and say, I understand you're looking at this, that, and the third, but you understand what you got here. I was in a very similar situation. I was ready to transfer because I felt like things weren't moving as fast as I wanted them to. Obviously, we're not talking about athletics with me, but I felt like things weren't moving fast enough. So I called my mentor and he was like, don't go. Stay steady. Stay there. When he told me that, there was a multitude of blessings that happened for me after that, right? So sometimes you just need that person close to you to say, stay the course. Nobody else could have probably told me that at the time, but he did. Shout out to James. James had not been on the show. Shout out to him out there in Shreveport, KSLA 12. Check him out. That's my boy. That's my guy. Known him for like over a decade. So, and then the last thing is opportunities. This is a little less of a speculation, but I think he wants more opportunities because when somebody was posting his numbers, he made sure to chime in 20 minutes per game. I thought that was so unnecessary. Not in the sense that like, oh, why would you say that? It's irritating me. No, nothing like that. I just wasn't sure what it added to the conversation. So I read it again and I thought about it. And to me, he's saying, listen, don't allow these numbers, which are small in my estimation of my own talent, don't allow this to make you think this is what you're getting. This was only done on 20 minutes per game. I could do so much more. And then he also had a tweet where he said, I stayed down. I deserve everything y'all about to witness. I hear you. Whether that's more money, whether that's more time, just understand that I weathered a storm. That could mean things happening at North Carolina A&T. That could mean the multitude of knee injuries that he had. That is in no way has to be a shot or anything. But he's saying that he has earned this opportunity for more. Wherever he's going to go, which everybody in the transfer portal believes is going to be the case, he believes wherever he's going to go is going to be more prosperous. Well, when I go to this more prosperous place, just understand that I did not have prosperity for a good amount of time. I deserve this. Just know that. So I think those are things, that go into play, right? And the NIL deal, you could even say that goes to posting the clips and marketing yourself. But if there's 3 reasons that I felt like he was going to leave, it's to get more money, maybe because the coach who recruited him is no longer here, and then also just to get more opportunities. That can include money, but it also probably includes more time on the court. So I hate that it had to happen this way, but this is a tough ending to what's going to be a really good story. Just interested to see what his next chapter looks like. Let's please not ridicule people just because they leave your university. If you were rooting for Duncan Powell because of his comeback story, please continue to rooting for Duncan Powell because of his comeback story. And going forward, Norfolk State women's basketball might have lost to South Carolina in the opening round of the tournament, but they left such an impression that Dawn Staley had to give a powerful message to open up her press conference and then also go to Norfolk State's locker room after the game to praise a specific player. Let's dive into that as we continue with Locked on HBCU. Before we get into that, today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. And how many of our brackets were busted after Fairleigh Dickinson defeated Purdue? According to ESPN, it was like 99 point something. So less than 1% of people who actually filled out a bracket picked Fairleigh Dickinson to win that game. So If your bracket's busted, don't worry about it. We have another one for you. The Built March Madness bracket. All you have to do is go to builtmarchmadness.com and you can vote for your favorite Built Bar, Built Puff, whatever it is. And when you do that, you get entered into a raffle, a drawing, or whatever. And there'll be 50 lucky Locked On listeners who are going to receive a box of Built Bars absolutely free. And then also there's going to be one who receives a 12-month subscription of the best bars that Built Bar has to offer. I'm jealous for you because I know they're not going to pick me. They got my address and name. They already know what's up with me. So they're not going to pick me, but they might pick you. So go to Built March Madness, vote for your favorite Built Bar. I mean, it's the last bracket you got that actually works. Why not go ahead and do it? And as we continue rolling with today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making us your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen of the day, matter of fact, let's keep it in the French terms. For your second listen of the day, go ahead and check out Locked On College Basketball. I know it looks like an L. That's why I'm laughing on the audio side. But check out Locked On College Basketball. They're going to be breaking down brackets and everything going on in March Madness. You're going to have Locked On, kind of like our Locked On Nows, but 5-minute interview sections, so make sure you guys are just checking out for that. They're great content pieces over there, breaking out everything in the NCAA tournament going on right now. Speaking of the NCAA tournament, Norfolk State, they left a significant impression on Dawn Staley in the University of South Carolina. Now, I understand that they lost the game, but trust and believe I'm not about to sit here and talk about a moral victory. I don't really like the idea of, they played in a game, let's applaud them. No, I applauded you for winning your conference tournament. So if it was just a moral victory of, you played in the game and that's it, I wouldn't talk about it. I'd find something else to talk about. I would. There's no interest in that for me. I'm either going to recap the game, or I'm going to give an interesting take in there. I'm not just going to say, Howard played, Norfolk State played, they deserve to be praised for that. No. If they got absolutely shellacked, I'm not going to sit here and just spin some BS for you. That's not how I do it. That's just not me. I'm committed to not sugarcoating it. So with this, you look at Howard. I'm sitting here telling you that Howard, they could have beat a 4 seed. That's a little different, but it's a testament to how well I felt like they played. With Norfolk State, Dawn Staley gave an opening statement at her press conference talking about how good that Norfolk State was. Dawn Staley went into the Norfolk State locker room to praise Keira Wheeler. Those actions instantly make this a big deal. It instantly screams the impression that they left on Dawn Staley. And to me, that's the story here. Not the fact that they played in a game, because it wasn't that close. You're right. But they left an impression through all of that. Now, what she said at the beginning is that they are not a 16 seed. Then she also said, I'm mentioning this for next year. I'm mentioning this for next year. So basically, they shouldn't have been a 16 seed this year. And I'm clamoring for change for this not to be the case next year. Now, I don't know how you do it. I don't know what's the way to make sure that HBCUs are not 16 to 15 seeds, right? I just don't. I don't think that the idea of going away from the system that is currently in place is going to work, because then it likely just becomes subjective. And if we're talking about conversations of subjectiveness, then it's just going to favor the big schools. Because, I get it. It makes sense to me. I understand that's what you're used to. It's what you're familiar with. It's what you feel is the best. I understand that completely. So I don't know if there's anything outside of just making sure that automatic bids have to be 12 and up or something like that. That's the only thing I could think of. But she said that. That's great. It's a subtle charge to saying we have to improve the seeding, because this team is much better than a 16 seed. We got a lot of problem from them when talking about how they played. Now, the other thing that she did was more so than just speaking on it publicly. She gave public and private support. Of course, nothing's private anymore. So somebody caught it on Instagram, somebody in the locker room recorded it, and they saw Dawn Staley praising Keira Wheeler for her performance and how they were able to chop down the bigs. She compared them to how the bigs were when she first got to South Carolina, and what they used to do to be so effective to other people is what she did, her being Keira Wheeler, was able to do to Dawn Staley. So I thought that was impressive. But then it also ties back to something else that she said in her press conference. And she was basically talking about how Norfolk State forced them to play a certain kind of way. When asked the question of, is rust a factor for South Carolina? She said, no, Norfolk State forced us into some bad situations. They didn't allow us to control the boards. Now, if you know anything about South Carolina, you know they have some really good bigs, including Aaliyah Boston. So now, when you're not allowing people like them to control the boards, that speaks volumes about your bigs, because that's a big deal. I'm not just trying to play on the word big, but like that's a big deal. When you can go in as a 16 seed and force a number one seed to be uncomfortable, force a number one seed away from what they typically do. She said it. Dawn Staley said it. We weren't able to control the boards, and that's something that we're typically pretty good at. Norfolk State made it to where a strength of the number one seed, I'm not going to say it was completely negated, but in the first half, it was significantly limited and hampered. Once again, not looking for any moral victory, but I will say this. Norfolk State left a strong impression on Dawn Staley. It showed by the way that she spoke about them in the press conference, and it's shown by her desire to go in the to go into the locker room and speak to Keira Wheeler. I don't know why I keep wanting to combine Wheeler and Staley, but to speak to Keira Wheeler and speak on how good she was and to praise her in front of all of her teammates and coaches. Going forward, we have a fantastic story. I think this story is just so fascinating. The fact that Kevin Saxton Jr. is now going to be on the Kansas City Chiefs coaching staff, not as an intern, but as an offensive assistant. And he was coaching on the D3 ranks just 5 years ago. We're going to dive into this story as we continue with Locked on HBCU. Before we get into that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And FanDuel is the official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network. And listen, I asked you this question at the beginning of the first one when we were talking about Built Bar, but how many of your brackets are busted? According to ESPN, it's 99 point something. So unless you're a part of that that 0.0000 something percent of people who filled out brackets, yours is busted. And that's okay, because at FanDuel, we allow you to do one game. They have the exclusive two for three, which is basically 2 3-pointers in the first 3 minutes of the game. You can put that down. You can combine a bunch of bets for the same game parlays. You can do the spread. You can do over-unders. You can do everything, and it doesn't require you to have to be correct with all of the games. It just requires you to be correct about the things that you're putting money down on, whether that's a single game, whether that's multiple players in a game, multiple players throughout other games, or just the outcome of a game in general. No need to worry about being perfect. Just be correct for a singular moment and get your money back. If you don't win, don't worry. They have the no sweat first bet, and you'll get up to $1,000. That's a rack in free bets back. And that's wrapping up today's episode of Locked on HBCU. I appreciate you for making us your first listen of the day every day and making it all the way to segment 3. Thank you 2 times for that. There you go. Segment 3. We're keeping up the French thing. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There we go. I had to count backwards, not because I need to remember it. 3, 2, 1. Anyway, let me stop trying to act like I'm really French or whatever. I probably sound ridiculous. I'll listen to this back. But Kevin Saxton is on a meteoric rise. The speed at which he is rising from positional coach to a member of an NFL coaching staff is insane to me. It is a fascinating story, but his latest step is to go from the D2 ranks at Benedict College to the NFL ranks at Kansas City. Now, the former Benedict College co-offensive coordinator has gone, in a matter of 5 years, D3, high school, D2, NFL. That is his coaching career. The man went to college in 2013, played 4 years, played 4 years. So he got out of college. I was in college, right? So this man has not been gone out of playing football for long. So the fact that he was able to rise to being an NFL coach, I think is a big deal. And I want to tell the story. And then I'll tell you why I think the Kansas City Chiefs is perfect, because why wouldn't it be, right? He completely skipped the D1 level. He skipped the SEC, ACC, Group of 5 conferences like the AAC, right? He skipped over all of that. He said, I'm going to go from the SEAC to the AFC. That's crazy to me. But you look at it, he had 3 years on the D3 level, went to high school for a year, went to the D2 level for a year, and now he's in the NFL. That's his coaching career. He spent 4 seasons in college in a year in high school. Never touched a big program. And I don't think that, and when I detail this, I don't want you to think that I'm like salty or I'm saying he doesn't deserve it. I definitely don't believe that Kansas City was like, I'm going to go down to Benedict College and give this guy a handout. I believe that he is probably the only Benedict College person or anybody connected to Benedict College on that staff or in that organization. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I don't feel like it's many. So I don't think they went to go give him a handout. There's obviously something about this guy that people like, and I get it. He has the track record for success. You look at when he was at D3 level. He started off as a running backs coach. Then he became a quarterbacks coach and a co-offensive coordinator there. And when he was the co-offensive coordinator in the 2 seasons that he had that role, top 25. He goes to high school, co-offensive coordinator. Most passing yards in the conference, most total yards in the conference. Exceptional track record. Then he comes to Benedict College. Eric Phoenix has the best year of his career, enters the transfer portal because he felt like his stock had risen so much. Success follows this man. So once again, I'm not calling it a handout. People clearly see something special in him. And the fact that he could go from being a running backs coach to being a quarterbacks coach, to being a co-offensive coordinator, then going to the high school ranks, and then going from 1 year in high school back in the collegiate level higher than he was when he left the first time at Benedict College, and then never even touching a big school, let alone a group of 5 conference school, and to go to the AFC, to go to the defending Super Bowl champions, and to land in what is probably a perfect situation for offensive minds. It tells you exactly what people think about you. I always say this about free agency, but the same is when it comes to looking for a new job. The beginning of No Vaseline. Here's what they think about you. Here's what they think about you. Here's what they think about you. When you go into negotiations, you know what they think about you. When people are contacting, you know what they think about you. And what they think about Kevin Saxton the second, Kevin Saxton Jr., because I've seen him be called 2 different things. What they think about him is he is an up-and-coming offensive mind. To land in Kansas City is great. I know the Bieniemy situation, let's put that aside. It might not be great for being an OC and getting a head coach as a black man, but that aside, the amount of experience, the amount of knowledge, the amount of innovation that he is going to be witnessing and be privy to and have to be able to now put in his mind, Kevin Saxton is in the offensive mind's heaven. There's not many places I'd rather be than next to Andy Reid when coming up with game plans, talking about different plays, how the offense works. He's been at it for so long, at a high level for so long. This is a phenomenal situation for Kevin Saxton. I'm happy for him, and this is something I would love to see more of. I don't know the trajectory of coaches typically, but to me, this feels like he is on a meteoric Flash Barry Allen type rise. That's how fast and how quickly he has risen. On tomorrow's episode, we're going to look at Bethune-Cookman's coaching staff because they have rattled off some guys, and it's pretty much a whole new staff with just a couple of holdovers from the last regime. Now, I appreciate you for making us your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On College Basketball for everything you need around the sport and March Madness itself. Check out Locked On College Basketball wherever you get your podcast. In the meantime, in between time, if you're looking for me, you can find me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.